This happened back in 2011. My cousin, Leo, and I were what you might call amateur paranormal investigators. We were obsessed with ghost hunting shows, and we'd spend our weekends driving out to so-called haunted locations with an EMF meter and a digital voice recorder, hoping to catch something, anything. We never took it too seriously. It was more of an excuse to hang out and explore weird places. For this particular trip, Leo found an old online forum, a really ancient-looking website from the early 2000s that talked about an abandoned sanatorium out in the rural parts of our state. The posts were over a decade old, but they described this place, the Blackwood Sanatorium, with a kind of chilling reverence. They claimed it was genuinely active, not just your typical spooky old building. The forum users had stopped posting updates years ago, and the last few entries warned people to stay away, that something had changed there. That, of course, just made us want to go even more. Leo managed to piece together a rough location from the old forum descriptions, cross-referencing them with historical maps. It wasn't precise, just a general area deep in a state forest. We figured that was good enough. We packed our gear, a couple of flashlights, and a bag of snacks, and set off on a Saturday afternoon, planning to get there just as the sun was setting. The drive itself was unsettling. The further we got from the city, the more the roads seemed to decay, going from paved highways to gravel tracks and finally to a barely there dirt path that scraped the bottom of my car. There were no other cars, no signs of life, just endless trees pressing in on both sides. The air grew heavy and still, and a strange silence fell that even our car's engine couldn't seem to penetrate. Leo, who was usually cracking jokes, had gone quiet, just staring out the window with a tense look on his face. I remember asking him if he was okay, and he just shrugged and said the place gave him a bad vibe. If I had been alone, I would have turned the car around right then and there. The feeling was palpable, a sense of being watched, of trespassing somewhere we weren't welcome. But with Leo there, my pride wouldn't let me back down. We pushed on, following the GPS dot into the deepening woods until we finally saw it. The sanatorium was a skeletal wreck, a multi-story brick building, almost completely consumed by ivy and time. The roof had caved in several places, and the windows were dark, empty sockets. There was no fence, no trespassing signs. Nothing to suggest anyone had been there in years. It was just sitting there, rotting in the middle of nowhere. We parked the car as hidden as we could among the trees and got our gear. The sun was a sliver of orange on the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows that made the building look even more menacing. The moment we stepped out of the car, the feeling of being watched intensified tenfold. It was a cold, prickling sensation on the back of my neck. We found an entrance through a collapsed wall on the ground floor, leading into what looked like a former reception area. The air inside was thick with the smell of damp, decay, and something else, something vaguely metallic and unpleasant. Dust motes danced in the beams of our flashlights, illuminating overturned furniture, peeling paint, and graffiti that was so old and faded it was almost part of the wall. We started our investigation, which mostly consisted of me walking around with the EMF meter while Leo asked questions into the empty air with his recorder. Is anyone here with us? Can you give us a sign? For the first hour, it was completely dead. The EMF meter stayed silent, and the only sounds were our own footsteps and the creaking of the decaying structure. We explored the ground floor, moving through patient rooms, a creepy-looking cafeteria with trays still scattered on the floor, and what we thought was a surgical theater. It was spooky, but not in a paranormal way. It just felt sad and forgotten. We decided to head up to the second floor. The main staircase was gone, so we had to find a crumbling service stairwell at the back of the building. As we climbed, a distinct chill ran through the air, so cold it made me shiver. At the same time, my EMF meter, which had been dormant all night, suddenly spiked. The lights flashed red, and it let out a high-pitched scream. Leo and I froze, looking at each other in the dim light. He whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded, my heart starting to pound. It wasn't the meter he was talking about. Faintly, from somewhere down the hall on the floor above, we heard what sounded like a footstep, a slow, heavy drag. One single, deliberate sound, and then silence. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, listening. Nothing. I told myself it was just the building settling, or maybe an animal. But the sound was so distinct, so human. Hesitantly, we continued up the stairs and stepped onto the second floor landing. This floor felt different. The air was colder, and the feeling of being watched was now an oppressive weight. Our flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing a long, straight hallway lined with doors to more patient rooms. At the far end of the hall, our beams caught something. It was a wheelchair, just an old, rusty wheelchair, sitting in the middle of the corridor. There was nothing inherently scary about it, but its placement felt intentional, like a prop on a stage. Leo raised his voice recorder. "If there's someone here, can you move that chair?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. We waited, our breath held tight in our chests. For a moment, there was only the sound of our own breathing. And then it happened. The right wheel of the chair slowly, deliberately, turned about a quarter rotation. It made a low, grinding squeal in the dead silence of the sanatorium. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a draft. Every window on this floor was boarded up or filled with rubble. It wasn't the building settling. The movement was too precise. The wheel turned and then it stopped. Leo and I were paralyzed, our flashlights fixed on the wheelchair. I felt a surge of pure, primal fear, the kind that tells you to run and not stop. But we were frozen. As we stared, we heard another sound. This time, it was closer. A soft, wet shuffling sound, coming from one of the rooms to our left, just a few doors down. It was followed by a low moan, a guttural sound of pain or despair that echoed down the hallway. It didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard. It sounded agonizingly human. That's what broke the spell. I grabbed Leo's arm and yelled, "We need to go. Now." We didn't wait for a response. We turned and bolted, scrambling back towards the stairwell. As we ran, the sounds behind us escalated. The shuffling grew louder, faster, as if something was chasing us. The moaning turned into a choked, gurgling scream that seemed to tear through the air. We practically fell down the service stairs, our flashlights bouncing wildly, creating a dizzying strobe effect of crumbling concrete and darkness. When we hit the ground floor, we didn't slow down. We sprinted through the reception area, not caring about the debris on the floor, our only thought being the exit. As we burst out of the collapsed wall and into the night, the sounds abruptly stopped. We reached the car, fumbled with the keys, and jumped inside, locking the doors. I slammed the car into reverse, not caring about the branches scraping against the sides. and sped down the dirt track as fast as I could. Neither of us said a word until we were back on a paved road, with streetlights and the faint glow of the city ahead of us. We never went back to Blackwood Sanatorium. When we got home, Leo played back the audio from his recorder. For the most part, it was just our own voices and footsteps. But when he got to the part on the second floor, you could hear it all. The heavy drag of a footstep, the squeal of the wheelchair, and then the shuffling and that awful gurgling scream. But there was something else, too. Right after Leo asked for a sign before the chair moved, there was a whisper. It was faint, almost inaudible, but it was there. A raspy, dry voice that said one word, "Get out."